let's talk about the projects that I made in May. And you're gonna wanna watch till the end because I'm gonna share my most favorite project of all time. Hi, my name is Sarah, and if you're new here, my channel is all about sewing and styling a handmade wardrobe. It's time to rank my monthly sewing makes, and I only made 2 new things this time, one of which I am so excited to share with you. But before we get to that, I want to talk about my repairs and alterations that I did in May. So the first alteration that I made, I actually did it while I was wearing it, which by the way, I don't really recommend, but in this case it worked out alright. So I had sewn these pants. This is Simplicity 8841. It's an elastic waist pant, very simple. It's made out of this navy linen rayon blend, but I always felt like the pants were just a little bit too short. Whenever I make a new pants pattern for the first time, I always try to guesstimate how much I'm going to need to shorten it, and I have learned over time to make it just a little bit longer than I think I need just in case I make mistakes. But on this particular pair, I didn't do that, and so I always just felt like they were a little bit too short, and it really bugged me. I didn't really wear them that much last year, and so I pulled them out of my timeout basket and I decided that I was going to wear them for the day just to see how I felt about them, to see if I really wanted to get rid of them or what I wanted to do with them. And while I was wearing them, I looked down and I happened to notice that there was a cuff that was stitched at the bottom hem, which I had kind of forgotten about. So I thought, I bet I could fix this just by getting rid of the cuff. So I got out my seam ripper, and while I was wearing the pants, I just quickly undid the stitches that were holding the cuff in place. It was one of those where you just stitch in the ditch of the seam line in order to keep the cuff in place, so it was very easy to remove. And by doing that, I was able to unfold the cuff, and that added about 1 inch of extra length. And now I'm really happy with the length. I think that they're pretty much the perfect ankle length for me. They look good with flats and maybe even like a low-heeled sandal. Now I did take some before and after pictures. I don't know if it's going to be that noticeable in the pictures just because of the way that I was standing and the angle of the mirror. It really doesn't look that different. But I know when I'm wearing them, they're just that little bit longer and they don't feel like high waters anymore, and that's really what I wanted. So that was a very successful fix. And I'm really glad to get these pants back in the rotation again because they are very comfortable, and because they're navy, they go with a lot of different tops. Next up are these overalls. This is McCall's 8204. I actually made these in 2021 and I wore them exactly 1 time, and then I never wore them again because I had an issue with the bib being too wide across my body. And so because it was too wide, the straps just constantly fell off of my shoulders. Anytime I moved, the straps would fall off. Anytime I sat down, the straps would fall off. And it was just so incredibly irritating that there was no way I could wear it. It was just very, very annoying. So I threw it in my basket and I left it for a really long time. And then last summer, I went ahead and dug it out of the basket and decided to fix it. Now this was in 2023, mind you. So what I did was I unpicked the facing and I went ahead and narrowed the bib so that it was less wide here. And then I just finished it off with bias tape. And then the only thing left was to finish up the bib and put in the little openings here so that I could do up the straps. So the pattern calls for a certain size of grommet. I can't remember what size it is, and I looked for it online and I just couldn't find any where you could just buy 2 and not buy like 100, or you could buy 2 but they were prohibitively expensive. And I was just very frustrated and I couldn't find what I was looking for, and so I threw it back in the basket. And it sat there until 2024 when I got it out this month and decided, okay, I just need to break down and actually finish this. So I gave up on the grommet idea, like forget the grommets, and I just went ahead and finished it off with a buttonhole. I put a little bit of interfacing behind the buttonhole to give some more stability, and it worked perfectly fine. And that was, again, a pretty quick and easy fix because at this point all I needed to do was put in the buttonholes and it would be done. I tried it on and it fits really nice. The straps stay on my shoulders now, and so I'm really happy to be able to put this in my wardrobe since I basically never wore it. I only wore it that 1 time, like many years ago. And I think this is going to be a really great loungewear piece for just being around the house but still feeling like I'm dressed. So I'm super happy to finally finish this one up and be able to wear it. Next up is a simple repair. This is my French Navy Stellan tee. It's made out of a cotton spandex jersey. I've had this for quite a few years now, and it's honestly not my favorite t-shirt. I've talked about it in the past, but because it's a basic and it's perfectly functional, I do wear it a lot. It is starting to kind of show some wear. There's some spots where there are some stains that I can't quite remove anymore. So I'm thinking that this one is nearing the end of its lifespan and I might want to replace it at some point, maybe after this season. But for now, I want to go ahead and maximize and get as much use out of it as I can. Now this pattern does have a back neck binding that covers up the serging stitching on the neckband, and a little bit of that binding had just come undone. And so that was another very, very quick and easy repair. I simply cut the loose thread and then I restitched it down again, and now I can get this one back in my closet and wearing it again. So not much to say about this one, but I'm really glad to have this basic back in the rotation because I do wear it pretty frequently, probably a couple times a month. This is Simplicity 8849. This is another one that I had only worn one time, but this was a fit issue. So I really like this little jacket. I think that it's perfect for wearing in the summertime over dresses, but the problem that I had was this is made out of a very sturdy ponte fabric that doesn't have a ton of stretch. And I'm not sure if maybe my fabric had less stretch than the pattern called for, but at any rate, the issue was that the cuffs here at the bottom were extremely tight, to the point where they were uncomfortable. It's a 3/4 length sleeve, and so I'd put it on and the cuffs would kind of get hung up on my arm, and it really kind of limited my range of motion, and it just didn't feel good. So into the timeout basket it went, and I never wore it again. But luckily, since I was in this mood of trying to repair and get as many things as possible back into my closet, this was also an easy fix. All I did was I unpicked the sleeve hems, and then I ripped out the sleeve seam up to the underarm, and then I started at the underarm and kept the original 5/8 inch seam allowance, and then I tapered it down to only 1/4 inch at the end here. So that added an additional 3/4 of an inch of room. And then I just folded the hem back up again and stitched it down. It was a very simple fix, and the fit is a lot better now. It's way more comfortable on my arm. And I did wear it the other day and it worked perfectly well, and I'm really happy to have this as a light summer layer because I do think it works really nicely over sleeveless or short sleeve dresses. I'm even eager to try it out with something like a high-waisted trouser to see if it'll look nice with that. So another basic that I think is going to get a lot of wear now that I've actually taken the time to make it fit me. Wrap dresses never look that good on the hanger, but this is the Sew Over It Eve wrap dress out of this really beautiful floral rayon fabric. I made this to wear to a family anniversary party, and when I originally made it, I made the longer view that has the high-low hem. Now I have learned something about myself since I sewed that dress, and that is that I absolutely hate high-low hems on me. I don't know that I can really articulate it in a way that makes sense, but every time I would wear a high-low hem of any kind, I just absolutely hated the way that it looked on me. So even though I think that this dress is absolutely gorgeous, I just wasn't reaching for it because I didn't like the hem. So I decided to pull it out and just even out the hem and make it an above the knee mini dress. Now I did mess up on this one, and my hope is that by saying it out loud on camera, I can avoid ever making this mistake again because hopefully it'll stick in my brain this time. But I made it too short. That's the gist of what happened. I'll explain in more detail, but I made it too short. So when I was trying on the dress to decide where I wanted it to hit, I wanted it to be a little bit above the knee, not too high, but not too low. I tried it on and I looked in the mirror and then I pinned where I wanted it from the front. And then I took off the dress, got out a ruler and measured how long that was. And then I just measured that amount around the entire dress and then cut off the excess, and I was gonna hem it. The problem is, and something that I just forget over and over and over again, is that my butt sticks out farther than my front does. And so when I make the skirt even all the way around, it's gonna be shorter in the back than it is in the front because my rear end sticks out. So I cut off the hem and I tried it on just to test it out before I did my actual hem stitch, and it just seemed like it was gonna be way too short. Like it just barely covered the booty and it was a little bit uncomfortable, and I was worried about if I raise my arms, if like my butt is gonna stick out the bottom. So I was just like, oh no, like I did it again. Like this is such a disaster. What am I gonna do now? So because it is a half circle skirt, I decided I'm just gonna put it on my dress form and let it hang for a few days, see what happens. Maybe the hem will drop, and if it doesn't, I'll figure out what to do later because I do have some of this fabric left over, and so my thought was I could probably rescue it if I put a ruffle on the bottom or something. So I did let it sit for a couple of days and I tried it on again, and I don't know if the hem actually dropped because it was pretty even, like it wasn't uneven at all, or if maybe it wasn't that bad to begin with and I was just being paranoid. But when I tried it on the second time, I thought to myself, you know, I think it's okay. Now, I did not want to put on an actual turned up hem because I didn't want it to be any shorter than this. So I just finished off the edge with a rolled hem on my serger so that I could finish the hem without cutting off any extra length. And what I will say is that it is a short dress. It is definitely a mini dress. It's short enough that I don't feel comfortable wearing it to the office anymore. But any other scenario, if I'm at home or, going out to run errands or going to lunch or going to dinner, I think it's fine. I do always worry about the arms above my head thing, but realistically, how often are we walking around with our arms above our heads? Probably not that much. So in the end, I'm happy with the way that this came out. I didn't really want to add a ruffle unless I really had to because that would change the look of the dress, and I just really like how clean and elegant it is. The ruffle would make it a little bit flirtier, a little bit girlier, and I would really prefer it more like this. So I am happy with the results in the end. It does remove a dress that I can wear to work, but that's okay. I have plenty of other dresses that I can wear to the office. It's not a big deal, and I was happy I was able to save this. And I do think that I'm going to wear this a lot more now than I would have if I hadn't changed it at all. The final alteration I have to share with you is this skirt, which was the Love Notions Rhapsody dress, and I'll put in a picture of what it used to look like. The reason why I changed this into a skirt is because I actually made another white eyelet dress. It's a knit dress, and at the time I was thinking, well, this one's different than my other one because it's knit and not woven. But the reality is that I had two white eyelet dresses in my closet that were pretty similar looking, and I just couldn't justify having both of them. And I like the knit dress better. So I decided to go ahead and just transform the Rhapsody into a skirt instead, because I don't have a white skirt like this, and I thought that it would be a really useful piece for summer and it would get a lot more wear than it was as the dress. Since I had two of them, I didn't need both. I just unpicked the bodice from the waist seam, took out the original elastic, which was only 1/4 of an inch wide, so that was not going to work for a waistband. And once I had the skirt separated from the bodice, I just folded down the top and made a new elastic casing, and then I think this is 1 1/4 inch elastic that I used for the waistband. And so now the skirt sits just above my knee, and it's actually the perfect short length for me. It's not too short this time. So I'm really happy with how this came out. I do need to be careful about undergarments with this, just like I did with the original dress. Because it's not lined, it's definitely not the time to wear your most fun, colorful underwear. You have to wear definitely nude colored underwear under this. But as long as I do that, because it's gathered, I don't think that it looks particularly see-through. And I'm really excited to have a little white skirt. So I think I'm going to have a lot of fun experimenting with the skirt and getting a lot of wear out of it. And so that was my final alteration of the month. So now that I've covered all of these, I'm going to send you to Past Me, and we will rank the two things that I made in the month of May. And in my opinion, they're both absolute showstoppers. The pants that I am wearing are the Closet Core Jude Jeans. This was my second time making the pattern, and this time I made view B, which is the higher rise with the patch pockets on the front. And it has more of a full flare leg rather than a boot cut. I made a size 2 at the waist and graded to a 4 at the hip. This was actually me sizing down because of the stretch of my fabric. The fabric that I used was some Cone Mills stretch denim that I bought from D&H Fabrics several years ago. And the fabric was unique in that it had 35% stretch, so way more than normal. So that's why I sized down from my measurements. Now I made a ton of adjustments in order to get these to fit me, and I don't want to read off a laundry list of all these adjustments, but the main thing to keep in mind with these jeans is that I made a mistake. So when I was making my pattern adjustments, I forgot for some reason to account for the fact that I had sized down, and so it was smaller than it normally would be. And I forgot to increase the size of the thighs because that's actually the biggest part of my body. It's where I need the most room. And so I couldn't really make a muslin of these jeans because the stretch of the fabric was just so unique. There's no way that I could duplicate that in any other fabric. But what I did do was I did a basted fit. So I cut out my pieces and then I basted them together and tried them on. And when I did that, they were so tight in the legs that the basting stitches popped. And so I couldn't even get them on basically because they were so tight. So what I ended up having to do was to take much smaller seam allowances in the leg, like right around the hip level down past my knee. I took 3/8 of an inch seam allowances on the sides, and then I think I took a 1/2 inch on the inside of the leg just to give me more space in the thighs. And they are still slightly too tight, but they're much more reasonable now and I can actually wear them. So thank goodness that Closet Core enables 5/8 inch seam allowances, because I was able to fudge it a little bit and still make it work. Now when I was shortening these pants, I made the same mistake that I've made so many times before, and I don't know why I keep doing this over and over again, but I made them too short. Because it's a flare leg, I was trying really hard to get the length as correct as I possibly could from the beginning, because if I had to go in and like chop off length from the bottom, it was going to make the flares less dramatic. But I overcompensated when I was shortening it and it ended up being too short, and so I went ahead and I did only a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the hem facing just to add a little bit of extra length, and I would say that right now they're a pretty good length to wear with flats, but I can't really wear these with heels because it would look a little bit strange. Now these are the jeans that I was working on when my sewing machine broke, and so there was this really long period of time in the middle where I didn't have my machine, so it's kind of impossible for me to calculate how much time it actually took me to sew this, but I would guess it was probably around a week of actual sewing time. If it was a normal scenario where I had my machine all the time, I think it probably would have taken me about a week to make these from start to finish. Now when I got my machine back and I was trying to finish up these pants, I think I did rush the process a little bit. I think I was just ready to be done with these and to move on to another project. So I rushed through a few of the steps that I normally would take more time with, and so I made a couple of stupid mistakes. But I think the main one that's really visible is the button here. So normally when I finish a pair of pants, I try them on and I open up the buttonhole and then I mark on my body where the button should go. And this time around, for some stupid reason, I didn't do that. I just laid them out flat on a table and marked the button. So when I actually put the jeans on my body, it's a little bit crooked and like this part sticks up a little bit, so it's not completely flush. And that really annoys me. It was a dumb mistake to make and I can't fix it now because I would have to take the button off and then there'd be a big hole there. So I just have to live with it. Fortunately for me, I wear a belt like 98% of the time, and so you probably won't really be able to tell that much if I didn't point it out to people. But that is a really silly mistake that I should have known better. I really wish I could have gone back in time and fixed that, but it is what it is. Other than that, I am really quite pleased with the fit of these and the way that they feel. The nice thing about stretch denim is that they were comfortable right away. A lot of jeans that I've made and even some pants, I have to wear them a couple of times to kind of break them in a little bit, make them more comfortable. But these were basically like a second skin right off the machine. They're so comfy and stretchy, they almost feel like leggings. Unfortunately for me, I had the foresight, because this fabric was so unique, I ended up buying quite a lot of it. I think I bought 5 yards. So I have plenty of fabric left to make another pair of jeans. I think at some point down the road, I do want to try to make myself a true skinny jean. With the level of stretch, I think that they could be really comfortable. Skinny jeans are the most challenging pants for me to fit because I have such muscular legs, I have to make a ton of adjustments. But I do think that the process will probably be worth it at some point when I'm ready to tackle it, because this fabric is just really unique and really special, and I think that it'll be great in that application. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy these particular pants. I think that they're going to be great for year-round wear. This was part of my winter sewing plans, and yes, I did finish them in May, but I did eventually finish them, and I was really proud of myself because I was able to tackle everything that was on that winter sewing plans list. This was the last piece. So I do think that these will be in my closet for many years to come, and I'll be able to wear them in a variety of different looks. Have you ever made something where you're impressed with yourself that you actually managed to do it? That is me with this coat. I love this coat so much. I just can't even believe that I made it myself. So this is the IM Patterns Bob Trench. I made a size 36 in view G, which is the longest view, and it's the version that has just the stand, there's no collar. So the only fit adjustments that I made was I did shorten the sleeves 2.5 inches, and I also shortened the length 2 inches. Now that is kind of unusual because I'm only 4'9", But I'm thinking I probably made my coat longer than the coat is intended to be, and so maybe that's why I only needed to shorten it 2 inches. Normally it'd be very common for me to have to shorten a coat like this 4 to 6 inches. So I just wanted to make a note of that in case you wanted to make one exactly like mine, that you might not actually need to shorten it, or you might even need to lengthen it if you're taller if you want this ankle length. This was a Minerva brand ambassador project, so they did sponsor me the fabric for free. This outer fabric is a soft cotton duck canvas in the color red, and then the lining is this absolutely gorgeous Minerva exclusive cotton sateen. I really love this print. I actually made a pair of pants and a matching top out of the rayon version of this fabric last year, and I just loved it so much that I wanted to use it for the lining. This is a cotton sateen. And both of these fabrics were really easy to work with because they're 100% cotton, easy to sew, easy to cut, easy to press. So I really enjoyed the process of making this coat. Now I did cut it out when I did not have my sewing machine, and then I was just waiting to get my sewing machine back before I completed it. But this was a very involved project. If I had to estimate, I would guess it probably took me 2 weeks from start to finish in terms of cutting out the fabric. There's a lot of pieces to cut. And then the process is really involved. There's a lot going on. It has welt pockets with this fake flap. It has the little tabs. It has the storm flap on the front and the back. Everything is lined. There's a vent. There's just a lot going on. So it's a very involved make. I'm pretty sure the website says that it's an advanced project, and I would agree with that, but I also think that it's doable if you just take it one step at a time. Now, in terms of the instructions, I will say that I Am Patterns uses diagrams, and most of the instructions were nice and clear. But for some of the trickier parts, like doing the welt pockets and then this hidden button placket, I got a little bit confused with the diagrams. But the nice thing about it is there is a sew along on their website where they spell out all of the really complex parts with photos. So I would say that if you are making this pattern and you run into trouble, make sure that you check out the sew along, because when I did that, it made it a lot clearer and I was able to figure out what I was supposed to do. So the combination of the instructions plus the sew along made this very doable as far as instructions go. I have to say, I really did enjoy the process of making this, even though it did take quite a long time. There's just something really satisfying about it. A lot of the techniques were different from what I'm used to doing, but they all worked really well in the end. There is a fair amount of hand stitching, but it's not horrible. Like, I was able to get through it. This project does have a lot of buttons, and so I think I needed something like 12 or 13 buttons. So that took some time to position them and sew them on. I do think that even though the hidden button placket looks really nice and it looks professional, to be honest, it's a little bit of a pain to actually do up the buttons, and so most likely, unless it's actually pouring down rain, I'm probably not going to actually do up all of the buttons. I probably just kind of do some in the middle and then use the belt to tighten it up. And I think that if I could go back in time, I would just skip the hidden placket because I don't mind having visible buttons. So that part of it just isn't really that important to me. And it's not really worth the aggravation that it causes to actually, as a practical matter, to wear this coat and having to do up the buttons and undo them. Besides that, I kind of think that this coat is perfect. Like, I just love it so, so much. I have always wanted a long red coat, even back before I was doing my own sewing, but of course back then and even now, it's really hard for me to find a ready-to-wear coat that fits me and is also the right color and the right fabric. And even when talking about just sewing my own, it's hard to find the right kind of fabric that's the exact shade that I want. So I really looked out. I was so fortunate that Minerva gifted me this fabric because I think that it's absolutely perfect. And the combination of this bright lining just makes me so happy to even look at this coat. The only thing that I'm sad about, and it's a short-term thing, is that I finished it basically at the start of summer. So I'm actually really hot wearing it right now. I will probably just need to put this away until the fall and get it out then, but I know that I'm going to wear it all the time because I just love it so, so much. Originally, when I made this coat, I went into it thinking this would be my only version. I don't think that I would ever sew it again, but now that I have finished it and I just love the way that it looks so much, I love the single-breasted look. I think that it's a better look for me than the traditional double-breasted coat. And the pattern does have several different variations in terms of length, and then you also have the option to add a collar. So I actually could see myself making at least one more version of this coat. I think I would like another long version, but with the visible placket and with the collar and maybe in like a navy color, like something really traditional. And possibly even in the future, making another version that's more of like a knee length one. I don't know. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself. This took a lot of work to do, so it's not like I want to make another one tomorrow. I could definitely use a break from this kind of project, but I really did just enjoy it. And I love the finished product so much that I definitely see myself putting at least one more version of this on my sewing list in the future. So that wraps up all of my makes for May. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see everything else that I made in 2024, check out this playlist.